This is the true story of Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's most influential military leaders. In 1799, the French Republic was a failed experiment. 10 years of revolution had left the nation exhausted, governed by a revolving door of weak administrations that struggled to maintain even basic order. Systemic corruption had drained the treasury, while the public lived in constant fear. To many, it seemed the very movement intended to liberate France was now the primary force tearing it apart. During this national collapse, Napoleon returned from his campaign in Egypt. He arrived without his army, yet he recognized a political opening that outweighed any military defeat. This atmosphere of total desperation created a unique opportunity. The French people were no longer looking for a philosopher. They were waiting for a hero who could exert control. On November 9, 1799, a date historically known as the 18th Brumaire, Napoleon swiftly launched a decisive coup d'état. Backed by loyal bayonets and a handful of powerful conspirators, he forced the existing government to dissolve almost overnight, clearing the way for a complete systemic overhaul. He emerged as first consul. At 30 years old, he had successfully positioned himself as the single most powerful figure in the country. This was not a conquest of a foreign enemy. It was the calculated use of military prestige to seize a fractured republic from within. Napoleon understood that battlefield glory offered only a temporary shield. To sustain his position, he had to prove he could govern as effectively as he fought. He initiated a series of rapid internal reforms, stabilizing the currency, centralizing tax collection, and rebuilding the civil administration from the ground up. To secure the future, he established a new educational system, the lycées, designed specifically to produce a new generation of loyal and skilled administrators. His most significant achievement was the Napoleonic Code, replacing a patchwork of local customs with a single set of laws. Inside these pages, the law recognized equality of citizens and protected property rights, principles that would influence legal systems globally. These reforms fundamentally shifted how the French public perceived him. To a nation used to years of uncertainty, he represented the return of stability and the rule of law. Yet even absolute control over the state did not satisfy his drive. Having mastered the republic, he now set his sights on a crown. On December 2, 1804, a heavy silence fell over the packed interior of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Pope Pius VII had traveled from Rome for the ceremony, prepared to uphold the ancient tradition where the Church bestows the crown upon a sovereign. But as the moment of coronation arrived, Napoleon ignored the established ritual. He stepped forward and took the crown from the altar with his own hands. Before the eyes of the Pope and thousands of witnesses, he turned and placed the crown upon his own head. This single act was a rejection of the old world order. He was signaling that his authority was not granted by the Church, inherited through royal bloodlines, or bestowed by a god. It was a power he had created for himself. Across the borders of France, the traditional monarchs of Europe watched this self-coronation with growing alarm. Look at the map of the continent in 1805. Fearing that Napoleon's ambition would eventually swallow their own kingdoms, Austria, Russia, and Britain formed a massive military alliance to dismantle his new empire. The Allied kings expected a swift victory against this upstart ruler. Instead, they were marching toward a confrontation that would redefine the art of war. To be continued in Part 7. Next part, the Battle of Austerlitz, how Napoleon defeated 2 emperors in one day and became the master of Europe. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to History Stories Dose so you never miss the next chapter of history.